The next morning, Karen marched into the Whispering Pines Community Center like a woman on a mission. Her sensible shoes clicked against the linoleum with military precision as she approached the reception desk. "Beverly, I need to see all violation reports filed in the past 3 months," she announced to the receptionist. Beverly's face went pale. "Oh, Karen, I'm not sure. I'm not asking as your neighbor, Beverly. I'm asking as the HOA oversight official. Those records are public information." 20 minutes later, Karen sat in the conference room surrounded by a mountain of paperwork that made her stomach churn. 17 separate complaints had been filed against her property. 17. The dog extended 2 inches past regulation. Her fence was 3/4 of an inch too high. Her garden gnomes were excessive and disruptive to community aesthetics. But the kicker, every single complaint was signed by different residents, all with suspiciously similar handwriting. "Margaret Chen," Karen muttered, recognizing the slight leftward slant. Margaret, the former board president who'd been reassigned after Karen discovered her embezzling from the community pool fund. Karen's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Resign now or face public humiliation. The community deserves better than a hypocrite." She laughed, actually laughed, and typed back, "The community deserves better than anonymous cowards. Come see me if you have complaints." Her phone immediately rang. "Karen Whitmore," she answered. "You have 48 hours to resign from the HOA board and remove yourself from all community oversight positions," said a disguised voice, "or we release the photos." "What photos?" Karen demanded, but the line went dead. That afternoon, Karen drove to Margaret's house, a sprawling colonial that had somehow avoided scrutiny despite having a non-regulation mailbox and unauthorized landscape lighting. She marched up the walkway and rang the doorbell. Margaret answered in a silk robe, looking surprised. "Karen, what brings you by?" "Cut the act, Margaret. I know you're behind the violation reports and the break-in." Margaret's face remained perfectly composed. "I have no idea what you're talking about. But since you're here, you should know that several residents have expressed concerns about your leadership style." "My leadership style has saved this community thousands in maintenance costs and kept our property values stable." "Has it?" Margaret smiled coldly. "Or have you been so busy policing everyone else that you've neglected to notice your own indiscretions?" Karen felt ice in her veins. "What are you talking about?" Margaret disappeared into her house and returned with a manila envelope. "These were taken last month. Quite interesting reading, don't you think?" The photos showed Karen's shed, the one she'd forgotten to get permits for, the one that was 6 inches too close to the property line, the one where she'd been storing community equipment she'd borrowed for personal projects. "You've been very naughty, Karen," Margaret purred. "The question is, what are you willing to do to keep this quiet?" Karen Whitmore's perfect evening of reviewing HOA violation reports was shattered when her lake cabin door exploded inward at 11:47 p.m. A figure in a ski mask stood silhouetted against the moonlight, holding what appeared to be a crowbar. "Wrong house, buddy," Karen said, not even looking up from her clipboard. She clicked her pen with practiced authority. "This is a private residence in a regulated community. You're trespassing, which violates Ordinance 15C, and that mask violates our anti-solicitation dress code." The intruder froze, clearly not expecting a lecture on community bylaws. "Ma'am, I'm here too. Did you register your vehicle at the main gate?" Karen interrupted, finally glancing up. Her reading glasses caught the light like tiny shields. "Because unauthorized parking is a $200 fine, and I don't see a visitor's pass on your dashboard." The masked figure shifted uncomfortably. "Listen, lady, you need to stop what you're doing or what?" Karen stood up, her 5'2" frame somehow commanding the room. "You'll file a complaint with the HOA board. Good luck with that. I am the HOA oversight official for Whispering Pines Lake Community, and I've been dealing with troublemakers like you for 15 years. She walked to her filing cabinet, completely ignoring the crowbar. "Let me guess, you're upset about the new dock regulations, the fence height requirements, or are you one of those people who thinks painting your shutters forest green instead of approved pine green is a constitutional right? The intruder backed toward the door. This isn't over. Oh, it's definitely not over, Karen agreed, pulling out a violation form. I'm citing you for breaking and entering improper footwear on community property. Those boots are leaving mud, and failure to maintain anonymous threatening behavior in accordance with our community standards. After the intruder fled, Karen calmly called the police, then her emergency HOA hotline. But as she waited, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The violation reports on her table weren't random complaints. They were all about her dock, her fence, her garden gnomes. Someone was building a case against the woman who'd built her entire identity around being untouchable. Karen stared at the photos for exactly 30 seconds before she started laughing. Not the polite chuckle of a woman caught off guard, but the deep, genuine laughter of someone who'd just realized her opponent had played themselves. "Margaret, you beautiful, vindictive fool," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "Did you really think this would work?" Margaret's confident smile faltered. "Those photos prove you violated 3 separate ordinances. The board will have to what? Remove me for the same violations that half the community has." Karen flipped through the photos again, her mind racing. These shed dimensions. I measured them myself when I approved old Mr. Peterson's identical shed last year. The borrowed equipment, all logged in my official reports as temporary storage during the community center renovation, and the property line issue. She pulled out her phone and showed Margaret the screen. "I applied for a variance 6 months ago, approved by the architectural committee. Your signature is on the approval, Margaret." The color drained from Margaret's face. "But here's the really interesting part," Karen continued, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "These photos were taken from inside the Hendersons' backyard. The Hendersons have been in Florida since October. So either you broke into their property to spy on me, or you've been trespassing regularly. Both of which are actual violations of community rules and state law." Margaret tried to snatch the photos back, but Karen was faster. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting for tomorrow night," Karen announced. "We're going to discuss the recent pattern of harassment against community officials, the forged complaint signatures, and the attempted intimidation of a sitting board member. I'm also recommending we install security cameras around the community center. What do you think, Margaret?" Margaret's face had gone from pale to gray. "You can't prove anything." "Can't I?" Karen pulled out her clipboard. She always carried a clipboard, and began writing. "Let's see. Violation notice for Margaret Chen, 47 Lakeshore Drive. Charges: harassment of community officials, filing false reports, trespassing on community property after hours, and," she paused dramatically, "maintaining a non-regulation water feature without proper permits. I noticed your new fountain last week. Lovely, but it's 3 feet too close to the street. That fountain was installed by the previous owners. Then you should have filed for a grandfather clause within 30 days of purchase. That was 4 years ago, Margaret." As Karen walked back to her car, she felt the familiar satisfaction of a job well done. But her phone buzzed with another unknown number. "This isn't over, Karen. Margaret was just the beginning." Karen smiled and typed back, "Good, I was getting bored." She drove home through the perfectly manicured streets of Whispering Pines, past the regulation mailboxes and approved fence heights, knowing that somewhere in this suburban paradise, someone was planning their next move. And honestly, she couldn't wait to see what they try next. After all, being the HOA oversight official wasn't just a job, it was a calling. And Karen Whitmore had never backed down from a fight, especially not in her own neighborhood. The war for Whispering Pines was just beginning.